Assalamualaikum everyone, and welcome to our online lesson on letter writing. In our previous lesson in class, we have analyzed 6 different letters and we have identified whether the letter is formal or informal by checking the format, the opening, and so on. We've also analyzed who the audience of the letter are and who the writer is. We've analyzed the relationship between the audience and the writer. We checked whether they are friends, whether they are family. Is it a letter between an aunt and a nephew? Is it a letter between a customer and a manager? So that's what we were talking about when we were looking at the relationship between the audience and the writer. We have also analyzed the purposes of the letter, whether the letter was written to invite the reader, the audience, or whether it is to complain about the service or to update news about your life events. So this is what we have learned in our previous lesson in class. And now for this lesson, I want you to be able to explain the exact differences between formal and informal letter, especially in terms of the format, the audience of the letter, the purpose, as well as the style, tone, and register. And we're going to talk about what this means after this. Let's look at the format. So this is the format of an informal letter, and as you can see on the right hand side, this is the writer's address, and you have the date of when you are writing the letter. And over here, you start off with the salutation. And for the salutation of informal letter, it will usually just be the name you call the person. So for example here, Dear Hanif. So make sure that when you write your salutation, the dear is with a capital D and you write the name properly with a comma as well. All right, moving on to the opening of the informal letter. Usually in the opening of the informal letter, you would ask how the audience is. So how are you over there in London? Are you surviving there in the cold weather? Haha, right? So this is the kind of tone, the kind of opening that you would write for an informal letter, since you are quite close to the audience of the letter and you know them personally. So in the opening of informal letter, usually you would ask how the reader is, how the audience is. And then you move on to the contents of your letter. Okay, last week when I was walking home from school, something in the bushes, da da da. Okay, so this is the content of the letter, and as you can see, it's quite informal. You can see that the writer here is using a lot of exclamation mark. So that is the content for informal letter. And you move on to the closing at the end. That is all. I hope you enjoyed reading this. Stop playing Fortnite too much and please write back to me soon. So even in the closing, the writer added something personal about the audience. And then the signing off phrase is right there, best wishes. And then you write your signature. So this is the format of an informal letter. Now this is the format of formal letter, and as you can see, it's a little bit more complicated compared to the informal letter. So for formal letter, on the right hand side, you would write the writer's address, your address with the date of when you are writing the letter. And then on the right hand side, you write the audience's name, the reader's name, the title here, manager of Nam Nam restaurant, and then the address of your audience. Okay, so when you're writing the audience's name, it's always the full name for formal letter. So here it's Shahmi Kasim. So even in the salutation, it is Dear Mr. Shahmi Kasim. Okay, if you know the name of the manager. If you don't know the name of the manager, it would be dear sir or madam, okay, if you don't know the name. But this one, you happen to know the name and the title, so it's Dear Mr. Shahmi Kasim. And then you write the title of your letter. So here it is Poor Restaurant Service. So from the title, you can tell what the purpose of the letter is, right? So in the opening, you don't ask, how are you? Okay, for formal letter. In the opening, you write the purpose right away. So here, I am writing to complain about the matter above, okay? So this is how the opening of a formal letter would sound like. It's straight to the point, talk about the purpose, and then move on to the contents of the letter. After you have finished writing the contents of the letter, you close it. So the closing here is very simple. It's, I look forward to better service next time. And then you write the signing off phrase. So over here, it is yours truly, comma, and then you end it with your signature. So this is the format of a formal letter. Now let's break it down. How do you explain the differences between an informal letter and a formal letter, especially in terms of audience, purpose, style, tone, and register, and the format? Okay, so now let's discuss this one by one. For an informal letter, usually the audience is someone the writer knows personally. So for example, maybe their friends or their family or acquaintance. Acquaintance means it's someone that you know, okay? So not necessarily your friend or family, but just someone that you know quite well. And maybe sometimes you meet during Hari Raya and so on, okay? So that is usually the audience for informal letter. The purposes of informal letter, there's a lot actually. Some of it is sometimes you write it to deliver bad or good news. Sometimes you just write it to give life updates about yourself and then you ask about theirs. Sometimes it's to give an advice about anything really, healthy life advice or exam and so on. Sometimes it is to apologize, or sometimes to invite the person to your birthday party or an event, maybe your wedding or something. Okay, so these are some of the purposes of informal letter. Now let's move on to style, tone, and register. What does this mean? Okay, style, tone, and register means how does your letter sound like? So for informal letter, usually it would sound very personal. Since you know the audience well, you would add personal things. For example, don't play Fortnite too much, okay? That's an example from the letter just now. Or, the last time I saw you was 5 years ago. I miss you, okay? So this is some, personal style, tone, and register. Personal way of saying things. And then it would also sound very casual because you know each other, okay? And colloquial. Colloquial means you use everyday English language. You use simple language that is easier for, your friends or family to understand. But remember, in O-level exam, even though it's informal letter and you are writing as if you're writing to your friend, you cannot write slangs. Okay, what are slangs? Slangs are, like bro or wanna, gonna, okay? Lol. So these are examples of slangs and you cannot write this in your O-level exam, okay? So you cannot write bro, you cannot write wanna, gonna, lol. Okay, you cannot. You wanna, no, you have to write want to or going to. Okay, so even though it says you can write in a casual tone, it cannot be too casual that you forget that this is an exam. Okay, you can also use contraction in your informal letter. What is contraction? So contraction is basically when you take two words and you make it short like this. So instead of writing I will, you write I'll. Instead of writing cannot, you write can't. Instead of writing I have, you write I've. Okay, so these are example of contraction, and you can use this in an informal letter. Okay, to show that you are close to the audience you're writing to. So for example, you can write something like this: I haven't heard from you in a long time. Okay, so instead of writing haven't, you can write haven't. Instead of writing have not, you can write haven't. Okay, so that's style, tone, and register. It's basically how your letter sounds like. Okay, in terms of the format, so just now we have looked at the format. Now, in terms of the introduction, okay, the opening of your letter, you usually ask about your reader's health and his or family's health. So how are you? How's your mom? How's your dad? Okay, because you are close to the audience, so you're showing that you care about them. And then you move on to the content of your letter in the second paragraph, okay? In terms of the signing off phrase in the last part of your letter, you can end it with love or best wishes or your friend, your lovely friend, best friend, your wife, your lovely husband, okay? Yours affectionately or all the best, okay? So these are the kind of signing off phrases that you can write for the audience that you are very close to. Now, for this one, this is for semi-formal letter. Okay, what does semi-formal letter mean? It means when you're writing to someone you know personally, but they have a higher status than you. For example, if you are writing to your teacher. For me, when I was in university, I used to write a lot of emails to my lecturer. So I wouldn't use this, right? Because it would sound probably inappropriate if I use this. So I would use this: best regards, kind regards, warmest regards, because I know my lecturer or my teacher personally, but they have a higher status than me, right? So I would end it with these signing off phrases. Now, in terms of formal letter, for formal letter, usually the audience is someone you don't know personally, okay? Someone the writer does not know personally. It's not someone you're close to. So for example, the principal, parents at school, editor of a magazine or a newspaper, or maybe you are writing to a company or an organization. Maybe you are writing to the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Economy or Education and so on. So this would be the audience, the kind of audience for formal letter. In terms of purposes for formal letter, there's a lot actually. Some of it is sometimes you're writing to complain or maybe to suggest for an improvement. Sometimes it is to invite, sometimes it is to inform. For example, to inform parents about an event that is happening at school, or to inform parents about the school closure and so on. Sometimes it is to request or ask for permission. For example, asking for permission to use the hall at school. Okay, so these are some of the purposes for formal letter. Now, in terms of style, tone, and register of a formal letter, so how does a formal letter sound like? So it would sound professional, okay? You would use professional sentences and formal standard English. So it does not sound casual like you're writing to a friend. This time you're writing to someone of a higher status, okay? The principal and so on. So you would use formal standard English. So you cannot use contractions like can't. This is no, okay? You cannot write can't. For informal, yes, but for formal, you must write the full form, which is cannot. And you cannot write I'm, you have to write I am, okay? So an example of a sentence would be, I am writing to inform you about an upcoming event, okay? So this one sounds quite professional and it uses formal standard English. If it's for informal letter, it would probably be, please come to my party. Okay, so this one that is casual, but this one is professional. I am writing to inform you about an upcoming event, or I am writing to invite you to attend our event. Okay, so that is the style, tone, and register for formal letter. In terms of format, in the opening, you would only be interested in the main purpose of the letter. So it's very straight to the point. It does not ask, how are you? Okay, you don't ask how are you in formal letter. In formal letter, you must write straight to the point. Okay, I am writing to inform. I'm writing to complain. Things like that. Okay, so for the signing off phrases in formal letter, there are 3 phrases that you can do. You can write yours truly when you know the audience. Maybe you've met them before. So you can write yours truly with a comma. And then yours sincerely with a comma is when you know the name of the audience. Okay, so Mr. Shahmi Kasim, da 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 da, yours sincerely. And then you write your signature. You can use yours faithfully, comma. This is when you begin the letter with dear sir or madam. So when you don't know the name of the person you're writing to, you use dear sir or madam, right? And then you end it with yours faithfully. Okay, so these are some of the details about formal letter that you should know about. Okay, now that we have learned the differences between an informal and formal letter, now look at this activity. Okay, read the salutation, signing off phrase, and the name of the writers below, and then decide whether it belongs to formal or informal letter. Okay, so now you can look at these, pause the video, and then decide whether is it an informal letter, formal, or a formal letter. Okay. Pause the video. And then I will show you the answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's look at the first one, A. So it says here, dear editor, and then it ends with yours truly, Siti Arina, da 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 da. Okay, so if you see a very long name, it also uses yours truly. Usually this would be for what letter? It is for formal letter. Yes. Okay. Now for B. Dear Mom, love, Azira. Okay, from here you can see even the name is short. It ends with love. And you can see the relationship. It's between a mom and a daughter. So obviously this would be an informal letter. Now look at C. Dear Azdina, best wishes, Amila. Okay, best wishes. And then the name is short, so this would be an informal letter. Now let's look at D. Dear Sir or Madam, yours faithfully, Muhammad Irfan Hakim bin Taufik. Okay, the name is long, it ends with yours faithfully, and it's Dear Sir or Madam. So this would be formal letter. Yay! Okay, now let's move on to the next activity. Now, for the second activity, you read the sentences and then you decide whether it belongs to formal or informal letter. Pause the video and then we'll discuss in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, A, how are you? I haven't heard from you in a long time. Now, you can see this is probably an opening of the letter, how are you? And it uses contraction here and a lot of like question and a lot of exclamation mark. So, this sounds quite personal, right? So, if it's personal, usually it is for an informal letter. Now, let's look at B. The purpose of this letter is to inform you about the upcoming National Day event. Now, this is talking about the purpose of the letter, probably in the opening of the letter, and you can see that the tone is quite professional and it uses formal standard English. So this would be for formal letter. Now let's look at C. I hope to hear from you at your earliest convenience. Earliest convenience, that's such a formal and very professional term, earliest convenience. What does it mean? Earliest convenience just means as soon as possible. Okay, so this would be formal letter. Okay, C and D is actually saying the same thing, but the style, tone, and register is different. So D is hope to hear from you soon. Now you can hear that this is actually quite informal. So this is for informal letter. So this one and this one is saying the same thing, but the tone, the style, and the register is different. As you can see, this one is professional and this one is casual and very personal. Hope to hear from you soon. And the language is very casual and colloquial, everyday language. Okay, now let's look at E. I look forward to better service next time. Better service next time. So obviously, you don't offer service to your family, right? So better service would probably be for like from a customer to a business. So obviously, this would be formal. And then the last one, F, please reply as soon as possible. Okay, please reply as soon as possible. Reply to me soon. It ends with exclamation mark. Okay, usually when you use a lot of exclamation mark, a lot of like emotion in your letter, it means that it is an informal letter. So how many did you get correct? So I hope now that you're able to see the differences between a formal and informal letter, especially in terms of the audience, the purpose, the style, tone, and register, as well as the format. That is the end of today's video, and I'll see you next lesson in the next video.